So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to number 4 in our campusM Mobile Monday webinar series, which, as you know, are all about the student journey through university life from prospective applicant through successful student to hopefully a generous alumni. Each one of the webinar series so far has looked at the different aspects of how campusM can help your university to support the student along the way. And the first 3 looked at how you can make one campusM application flexible enough to support many different audiences, how you can use it to support learning and student success, and also how to make your university app much more personal. If you missed those, we have recordings available. Just post your name in the chat window, which is on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, and we'll more than happily email the links to you after the webinar. In fact, please use the chat window throughout the webinar to post any questions, any comments, or any observations that you may have, and we'll respond to these at the end of the session. So today we're going to spend about 20 minutes looking at how you can design and brand your university's mobile application. We'll be looking at the importance of using the app to strengthen your university's brand identity, the importance of ensuring that the app content and design is coherent with the university's brand and visual identity guidelines, and also how campusM makes it easy for you to achieve all of these goals. So one of the most important factors in executing any brand strategy is to remember that you don't actually own your own brand identity. It may sound like an odd thing to say, but in fact, the reality is you can have the tightest strategic statement, you can have the most inspirational brand promise, you can have the most tightly and carefully crafted tagline, but the moment any branding element makes contact with a consumer or with a customer, it gets filtered by that customer's existing perceptions of you. So in other words, your brand is what the consumer perceives it to be. So it makes sense to ensure that you create as few opportunities as possible for any misperception by maintaining consistency across all of the elements of the marketing mix. If you don't, then what happens is you weaken your message to prospective students, to existing students, to potential faculty, to donors and to alumni. So in extreme cases, you can actually cause confusion, you can damage the confidence of the consumer, and you can make the decision to join or support your institution just a little bit more difficult than it really needs to be. This is very important because, as we said in an earlier webinar, you are constantly competing with other organisations on more than one front. You're competing to attract the best students, you want to get the best academic staff, you want to get the best researchers, you want to find the most highly skilled back office staff to support you. You're comparing for a share of attention all of the time, and of course you're comparing for funds and income and donations as well. So while the zero moment of truth on the student journey may be the potential student's first visit to your website, one of the next moments of truth is likely to be when they download the iteration of your campusM app that you have designed specifically to be used by prospective students. So not only do you want consistency from your marketing channel, your website in the first instance, and you want to maintain that consistency when you move to another marketing channel, in this particular case your application, you also want your app to compare well when it's being compared with other apps promoted by other institutions that prospective students will encounter during their research while they're trying to decide which universities they want to be putting onto their shortlist. So which all means that we need to remember that your campusM app is not simply a piece of very clever technology with the ability and the functionality to help you to market, to sell, to support students to enhance learning outcomes and create loyalty throughout the student journey that ultimately leads to hopefully generous and repeated donations. So your mobile app is in fact a marketing channel as well. That means that it needs to be able to support consistently your brand's core messages and its identity in a way that is relevant to the individual user. And this is one of the strengths of campusM. It has this flexibility to present a consistent visual representation of your brand, to allow administrators to concentrate on content and on application integration, but it also allows you to maintain relevance to users throughout their entire student journey, their entire life on the campus. So as these screenshots from the University of Colorado Boulder illustrate that. It describes to staff and to administrators the importance of correctly designing and maintaining the app. And in fact, there's one sentence in here which is particularly compelling, and I'll just take the opportunity to read this out in case it's not clear. Applications branded with the university name represent the university to the world and can either enhance or detract from our university's reputation. That said, nothing creates a worse impression in the mobile app repositories than an app that is poorly crafted, not kept up to date, uses unprofessional graphics, or does not include the campus logos. And I think that very succinctly illustrates what we see quite often with a number of universities where they have an app that's been allowed to get out of date. We also see other universities that have 3 or 4 or 5 different apps that have been put together by different faculties, none of which have any kind of visual relationship with each other, none of which seem to be carrying the same kind of messages, and none of which are actually explicit about what their aims and purposes are. And the consequence of getting into that situation is that when a prospective student goes to the App Store, they try to download the application for your university, they're not sure which one they want, which one they should be using, and it creates a frustrating and poor impression of your institution. So the starting point when it comes to designing the mobile application, of course, is to understand what your brand identity is and what your visual representation is going to be. But then the next thing that you need to do is to map out the services that you plan to provide for each group of users. And as you can see on the screen here, you have a number of different profiles, student, staff, admissions, open house, alumni, guest profiles, all of which can have one or more of the different functionalities that campusM is capable of supporting. So we see here a library integration, integration with the student's academic timetable. We can include emails, virtual learning environments, links to maps and transportation, so on and so forth. The purpose of this part of the exercise is to help you to identify the number of tiles that you're going to need for each profile, and then from that you can work out their sizes, how the mosaics of tiles are going to be composed onto the mobile device screen, default views that you're going to have when users initially download the application, which tiles you're going to insist are mandatory and cannot be moved or removed, and which ones you're going to allow the users to move and reposition and delete according to their own individual requirements. Now, it's important at this stage to remember that campusM is a very flexible app that you can evolve over time without having to make any dramatic re-engineering. So any mistakes that you might make to start off with are not a disaster. It doesn't mean that you're going to have to go right the way back to the start and re-engineer things. You quite simply make changes and tweaks as you want to go, as you go along. And you can do this very easily by means of the campusM app builder. And I'll talk about that in a little while so that you get an idea of how simple it is to do. Now, this process of approaching a mobile design can be a little bit daunting if you've never been involved in it. So we have graphical designers on the campusM division of Ex Libris who work with the university during the initial stages of the application development to provide the right designs of the university and to ensure that the basic parameters and constraints of working within a mobile form factor, whether that's a mobile phone or a tablet of different makes and manufacturers, are really understood and they're passed across to you to allow you to maintain the app later on. And now after deployment, the design team can remain available through professional services engagements, but the important thing about the app builder is that it makes changing or modifying a design or an element of a design a really, really simple process. And that means that you can modify these graphical elements anytime that you want to without having to come back to campusM. So you can flex them according to where you are within the academic year, or if you decide that you're going to introduce a new service to students, or you want to remove an integration from a student from a profile because you no longer use that particular back-end campus application. These are very simple and easy things to do, and they can be made by non-technical people because it is a very straightforward drag and drop interface. Now, as we can see here, each profile can have a completely unique design. So on the left-hand side, we see what a student might see. which focuses on the things that students would possibly be interested in. So we're looking here at the library and then on downloads and on the directory and on emails, and a little agenda notification here as well. We can also see an open house. Now, obviously, prospective students don't necessarily need to see the full functionality of the library, so we take that away from them. But we do give them a program that's distinct from the timetabling application or from the agenda, and allows them to build up a program of things they want to go and see, people they want to meet, where they want to go on campus, so on and so forth. And then, of course, as we move a student from being a prospective student who's on an open house visit to somebody who actually wants to join the university, we can create an admissions profile, and that can be dynamically displayed to the user when they move from prospective to applicant. And this allows them to look at things they particularly want, so they can look at the online application, they can understand the admissions processes, they could look at fees and grants and loans and so on and so forth. So the important thing here is that we can make the application engaging by focusing on the content, on what the application is able to do, and making sure that's personalised for the user and where they are within their student journey. But we can also make it engaging through how the application looks. We can make it look appealing and attractive, but we can also, as you can see here for these three, maintain a level of consistency with application, with university brand guidelines and with the visual identity. Now, you can, of course, change the design to reflect your own branding or your own sub-brands. And this ability to change the application to reflect a change in the relationship or a different relationship between the brand and the user, and here, for example, we're looking at the alumni and the guest user profile, also help to create an engagement with the app. And that engagement with the app also promotes its use and ensures that it stays on the user's mobile device and it's something that they engage with all of the time. So while we talk about tiles as part of the user interface, you don't need to be thinking in terms of a very rigid grid of squares and columns. Clever use of design tools such as Photoshop allow you to create a design that you can slice up and then recreate as a mosaic inside of campusM App Builder. So if we have a look here, we have on the left-hand side the University of New South Wales Information Day. That absolutely does not look like a tiled application at all. It is. If you look closely, you can probably work out exactly where the slices have been made on the original design and how it's been reassembled back into a mosaic inside the app builder. But to a user, it looks like a simple screen with a number of different icons positioned around it. If you have a look at Bournemouth University, you can see here that, again, they haven't been restricted to a simple, straightforward grid. They've broken the grid up and they've segmented it. And they've cleverly used designs and shapes and colours to call attention to the things that are actually important of that particular part of the student journey. This is really for initial couple of weeks that a student will be with the university. And then, of course, you go across to something like you have to the University of Hull, where they have used pretty much a standard kind of tile structure, but they've used a nice flat design, which is something that you see very, very often when you're looking at iOS and indeed with Android applications as well. The design metaphors that you're using are entirely up to you. Those are graphical representations. The only thing you need to bear in mind is that there's a restriction on the size of the screen, a restriction on how small you want an individual graphical element to become. But if you decide that you don't want to use a flat design, you want to follow Google and use material design concepts, that's absolutely fine as well. So obviously it can be graphically represented as PNGs or JPEGs. It'll work inside campusM. So the App Builder is a tool that campusM App Manager provides for graphical design, and it provides a very simple way to modify elements on the application screen. So within the App Builder, it's quite simply a point-and-click interface. There's really nothing more complicated than that. On the left-hand side, you can see the first circle. That shows you the option to choose the kind of form factor that you're looking at. So here we're looking at an iPhone 6. That could easily be an Android-based device, or it could be a tablet, for example. What you can also do is to choose the profile that you want to work within. So here you can see with a tick next to the student/staff profile. And what this means is that you're designing so that when somebody of a particular profile uses the application, this is the screen that they're going to see. So that means that obviously we need to have a connection between what the user sees on the screen and the user's entitlements and credentials within the university systems. And we'll come and have a look at that in a little while, just to explain how that works. But then what you also see is, for example, here if we click on the Add button, we have the option to create a new tile. And this new tile can take a number of roles. It could be a very basic tile. So, for example, it's just going to link to a web page. It could be linking to some very, very specific content, for example, a PDF that you want people to read, or to a particular subset of pages, if you like, within the campusM application. It could be what we call an AEK component. AEK stands for Application Extension Kit, and it's this that allows you to use the APIs that are provided with campusM to hook into any other application that the campus, the university may be using, that also allows you to publish and consume APIs. And that allows you to integrate very tightly within the mobile device access to other applications and the data those other applications might contain. It could be what we call a feeds tile. A feeds tile is something that takes some dynamic content and constantly feeds it through to the application. So an example of this would be Twitter, for example, relevant tweets that you've decided to filter in and include. It could be Facebook pages, so on and so forth. And it could also be a banners tile. And a banners tile is something that rolls and scrolls across the top of the screen and calls attention to particularly important things. The important thing to remember about the banners tile and the content tile and the basic tile is that they are all relevant to the student or the staff, and they can be personalized down to quite a high level of granularity. If you want more information about how we can personalize it, then have a look at last month's webinar, which was all about making it personal. And we also have a number of video assets that we can share with you. And if you'd like to see those, then drop your name into the Q&A box on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll make sure that we send you links to all of those. So any picture or any text or any color, any size of text or picture can be very, very easily changed within the app builder. So, for example, the university logo can be inserted very easily as the app's default icon in the app header section, quite simply by browsing to the file on the server that you actually want to use as the application header. Now, this can be personalized, this can be unique to a particular operating system or to a particular form factor. So, as you know, for example, if you're moving from an iOS on an iPhone to iOS on a tablet, for example, then you have a bigger screen estate to play with. You can display a larger icon, but that icon may not necessarily scale up without losing some of its quality. And this allows you to specify particular sizes and particular PPI parameters for individual icons and have those displayed correctly according to which device that you're displaying it on. You can also select the picture here for an applet interface tile. So, for example, here you can see that we've chosen one specifically for transport. These icons are things that you can buy, so long as you can represent them as JPEGs or PNGs, that's absolutely fine. And you can use applications like Photoshop, for example, to recolor, to resize them, modify them, to make them unique as well if you want to. As I say, there's no restriction as far as we're concerned, just so long as they're JPEGs or PNGs, or indeed GIFs if you're going to be using animated banners. So the app builder has been designed to be it's easy, it's intuitive, it's quite simply click on the thing you want to change, go to the right part of the app builder, and then select the file that you want. Change the colors that you want, decide whether you want it to be a full width icon or a constrained width icon, how high you want the tiles to be in terms of tile counts. And all of these changes can be made without some IT support. So again, there's another set of resources about how you do graphical design with the app builder, and these range from very short video introductions that are a couple of minutes long through to a very detailed hour-long video training course for people that have decided that they want to invest in campusM. So again, if you want to see those, drop your name into the chat box, and more than happy to email those through to you. So making significant changes could have an impact on the brand and on the identity, and obviously you do need to check before you deploy. So campusM provides the tools to test any change with what we call the beta tester role before you make it public. So this means that you could change a major piece of application infrastructure, such as replacing your timetable service across the whole university, but test it for usability inside campusM before you deploy it. In other words, that you will save yourself a lot of time and trouble with students not being able to access it, not being able to see it properly. You can also change design elements, and you can have these design elements such as color or logos or stars or branding or what have you, checked for brand compliance before anybody actually gets the opportunity to see them. So this does give you the ability to continually refresh and change your IT infrastructure, to change your graphical designs, to communicate differently with your audiences without having to go right the way back to the beginning and build your application all over again. It's a complete separation of the content, the application integrations and the design elements as well. Now, once you've made a change to the application, you're obviously going to want to see what kind of impact it has on you. And these can sometimes drive an increase in the use of service, a positive increase. Alternatively, sometimes they can have a negative impact as well. So with the analytics available from inside the App Manager, you can see which services are used most often and which ones are perhaps being poorly used. And this can allow you to take actions to correct or change that. These could be promotional actions, to get people to use that particular functionality more often, or it could allow you to initiate a redesign to make them easier to use or more intuitive to use if that's the feedback you get from your users about why they're not using them. Or alternatively, you could decide completely to eliminate that piece of functionality from the application and allow yourself the time to concentrate more on things that matter more to the users. So you can also look at the usage by the profile here. If you have a look on the screen, you can see the third tab along refers to profiles. And this allows you to, for example, look at your Open Day application, to look at the Open Day profile, and to determine, for example, how widely the maps and the transport applets are being used versus the downloadable travel information. It could also give you an indication as to whether people are using the location awareness that's built into campusM to help them to navigate through a guided tour, or whether they're taking advantage of a promotional voucher for a free coffee and a cake during the Open Day to help them refresh themselves. This ability to be able to analyse the changes that you make is something that's it's particularly important as far as the marketing and the communications folk inside the university are concerned, because this is the information that they need to know to help them to design improvements in the communications plan, and also to make sure that the branding and the identity is on track. And you can go into details about specific audiences. So it could happen that some audiences, like students, here they're represented in the green colour, are using the application frequently. And you can see over the course of the academic year how that change in use adjusts itself. So in September, we get a large number of students using the application. Over December, we see less, because that's going to be the Christmas period. Coming to May, June, July, when students are perhaps working hard on getting themselves prepared for examinations, you're going to see even less of a utilisation. But you can take that and you can compare it, for example, against something like the Alumni Association, which is shown here in red. And as you can see, there's almost no representation for the alumni at all across this set of statistics. So that would be an indication to a marketing person or to an alumni relationship person that something needs to change to make the engagement more appealing for the alumni audience. So it could be you need to change the functionalities that are available. It could be that you need to change the visual representation. It could be that you need to look at your personalization policy and strategy. All of these things are things that are very, very easy inside campusM to implement a change on. So at this point here, I'm going to stop and just check and see if we have any questions that have come through. If you haven't been able to send any questions, then possibly if you have a look in the chat window on the bottom right-hand side, and just feel free to type them in there and click enter. We have got one question which talks about the content management side of campusM. We haven't spoken about this. It's a very important part of representing a brand and the visual identity, is to make sure that the content and the tone of voice are absolutely identical, whether you're looking at it on a mobile, on a tablet, or indeed on a PC and on a web browser. And the important thing to bear in mind about campusM is that it is as a portal as much as it is a mobile application. So within campusM, you have the ability to create one set of content and make sure that content is reproduced in an engaging fashion, in a usable fashion, no matter what form factor people are looking at. So if you want to, for example, push notifications to people to tell them that examinations are due to be started in 2 weeks' time, then that can be pushed very easily to the tablet, to the mobile phone, or displayed on the web browser as well. Let me just check and see the next question we have. Yeah, so the graphical interfaces into campusM, as I said before, those quite simply take advantage of JPEGs, PNGs, GIF images, anything that you might typically output through Photoshop. We don't really mind what the original application used for creation is. We can also access PDFs and all of the other common file formats that you might find within the PC and the Apple Macintosh world as well. And yeah, a question about the design services. These are part of your implementation services within campusM. So as you know, there's an implementation and setup fee. There's also the annual subscription fee for using the service. The initial set of design guidelines or guidances, if you like, are included in your implementation fee. You can, of course, as I said before, if you want to come back to us and ask us to help you to create changes to your visual identity or to enhance your visual identity, we can, of course, do that. But most of our customers, in all honesty, don't come back to us to do that. They tend to use their own internal design resources or their own third-party agency to help them do that. The guidelines that we provide you within campusM are industry standard guidelines for designing mobile applications, or mobile user interfaces rather, and these are things that are really constrained by the size of the size of the file format, the size of the display format that you're going to be targeting, and also the resolution that those particular devices are capable of displaying. There's nothing that's not industry standard about that. So I think that is all of the questions that we have so far, which is good. So as I say, this is a very, very short and sweet introduction to campusM and how you can reflect brand identity and values easily within it. We looked a little bit at the design process. We talked about the ease with which non-technical staff can make and test changes. We will be publishing a recording of this webinar along with other resources we have about creating visual identity, about the design, and about using campusM to support the student journey. All it remains for me to say is thank you very much for taking the time to listen. If you have more questions, my email address is on your screen at the moment. I'm more than happy to chat to you by email or talk to you on the telephone. Until then, let's meet again next Monday for Mobile Monday number 5, which is where we'll be looking at how campusM can be used as a mobile app and as a web portal, and how it allows you to write once and publish anywhere. Thank you again for taking the time to join, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Bye-bye now.